The first time I saw her, she was standing alone in the corner of a marble hallway, clutching a torn stuffed rabbit like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. The employees walked past her as if she didn't exist, their eyes carefully avoiding her face. And when I finally looked at her, I understood why. Her features were uneven, her skin marked by scars that looked like they had fought battles no child should ever endure. But it wasn't her appearance that hit me the hardest, it was her eyes. They carried a quiet kind of pain, the kind that comes from being unseen for far too long. That was the day everything in my life changed. If you believe that kindness can change a life and that everyone deserves a second chance, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this remind us what truly matters. My name is Nathaniel Brooks, and at that time, I was barely holding my life together in Chicago. I had just lost my apartment after being laid off from a warehouse job, and the only thing standing between me and sleeping on the streets was a temporary position as a personal assistant for a powerful CEO, Nathaniel Pierce. The man was known across the city for his ruthless business tactics, his billion-dollar empire, and his complete lack of patience for weakness. The job wasn't glamorous. I was hired to handle errands, paperwork, and anything no one else wanted to deal with. It was the kind of job where you stayed invisible and did exactly what you were told. And that was fine with me. I needed the paycheck. But no one warned me about his daughter. Her name was Abigail Pierce. On my second day, I was asked to deliver some files to the top floor of the building, the private wing where Nathaniel Pierce's office and residence were located. That was where I first saw her. Standing there. Alone. Ignored. Later that afternoon, one of the senior assistants pulled me aside and told me something in a low voice that felt more like a warning than information. He said that Abigail rarely came out of her room, that she had been born with severe facial deformities, and that most of the staff avoided interacting with her. He said the CEO himself kept his distance, focusing on his empire rather than his child. And then he said something that stayed with me. She scares people. But when I looked at her, I didn't see something to fear. I saw someone who had been abandoned without ever being left behind. The next day, I found her sitting in the same spot again, holding that worn-out stuffed rabbit. This time, I didn't walk past her. I slowed down, knelt beside her, and gently asked if she was okay. She didn't answer. She just stared at me, like she was trying to figure out if I was real. I didn't try to force a conversation. I just sat there for a moment, then reached into my bag and pulled out a chocolate bar I had saved from lunch. I placed it beside her, nodded once, and walked away. It wasn't much. But it was the beginning. Over the next few weeks, I made it a habit to stop by whenever I saw her. Sometimes I brought small things, a book, a snack, a silly doodle on a piece of paper. Most of the time, she didn't say anything. But she started to look at me differently. Less like a stranger. More like something safe. Then one day, everything changed. It was raining heavily that afternoon, the kind of storm that made the city feel darker than usual. I had just finished running an errand when I noticed Abigail standing near the entrance, staring outside. No one else was around. I walked over and asked if she wanted to go out. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she nodded. I took off my jacket, held it over her head to shield her from the rain, and guided her outside. The cold air hit us both, but she didn't seem to mind. In fact, for the first time, I saw something I hadn't seen before. A hint of a smile. We walked along the sidewalk, the rain tapping softly around us. I pointed out little things, the way the water flowed along the curb, the reflections of the city lights in puddles, the distant sound of a train passing by. She listened quietly, her small hand gripping the edge of my sleeve. And then, in a voice so soft I almost didn't hear it, she spoke. "My name is Abby." It was just 3 words. But it felt like the world had shifted. From that day on, everything began to change. Abby started opening up little by little. She began to talk more, to ask questions, to smile, really smile. I learned that she loved drawing, that she had a vivid imagination, and that she had spent most of her life feeling invisible. And I realized something that broke my heart. No one had ever truly seen her before. Not even her father. Jonathan Pierce remained distant. He barely acknowledged her presence, treating her like a responsibility rather than a daughter. But I noticed something else. Every time Abby laughed, every time she ran down the hallway with a bit more confidence, the staff started to look at her differently. Not with fear, but with curiosity. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. I was called into the CEO's office. Jonathan Pierce sat behind his massive desk, his expression unreadable. He asked me about Abby, about what I had been doing with her, why she seemed different. I told him the truth. I told him that she wasn't broken. That she wasn't someone to be hidden away. That she just needed someone to care. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, quietly, he admitted something I never expected. He said he didn't know how. He said he had spent so many years building his empire that he had forgotten how to be a father. And in that moment, I saw a different man. Not the powerful CEO. Just a father who had lost his way. Things didn't change overnight. But they started to. Jonathan began spending small amounts of time with Abby. At first, it was awkward, almost painful to watch. But Abby didn't give up on him. She approached him with the same quiet patience she had shown me. And slowly, he responded. Weeks turned into months. Abby grew more confident, more alive. She started attending small social events, her head held a little higher each time. The staff who once avoided her began to greet her, to smile, to treat her like she had always deserved. And Jonathan Pierce, he changed too. He started leaving work earlier. He attended Abby's school meetings. He even framed one of her drawings and placed it in his office. One drawing. But it meant everything. As for me, my temporary job turned into something permanent. Not because I asked for it, but because Jonathan said something I would never forget. He said I had done something no amount of money could buy. I had given his daughter her life back. And in a way, she had given me mine too. Because before I met Abby, I was just surviving. Drifting through life, trying to stay afloat. But she reminded me of something simple and powerful. That even the smallest act of kindness can create a ripple strong enough to change everything. Before we reach the end, I have a special request. Comment below where you're watching from and share one act of kindness you've experienced or given. Let's spread something positive together. The last time I saw Abby before moving to a new role in the company, she ran up to me with that same stuffed rabbit in her hands. But this time, it wasn't torn anymore. It had been carefully stitched, restored, just like her. She hugged me tightly, and for a moment, neither of us wanted to let go. Her face hadn't changed. But the way the world saw her had. And more importantly, the way she saw herself had transformed completely. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more meaningful stories like this to life. Because sometimes, the people the world overlooks are the ones who end up changing it forever.